The Toyota RAV4 is all new for the 2026 model year for the 6th generation of the RAV4, and it has some big changes and improvements. A hugely improved interior. We have also the option of a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, but they're all hybridized now. There is no non-hybrid RAV4, so that's a huge improvement as far as power goes, as far as fuel economy for everyone, and it's all very, very exciting. So in this video, I'll cover the exterior changes, the interior changes, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talk about the kind of fuel economy you can expect and also the pricing. And so as far as this vehicle goes, well, you can see that it's very similar as far as dimensions goes. It's actually identically sized. If you go for the Woodland or the GR Sport versions, which I reviewed separately, those are like an inch longer because of their unique bumpers. But other than that, you know, it's going to be the same size. And so if you're coming out of the last generation RAV4, very familiar as far as parking, as far as interior space, all of that should be basically the same. So no space changes here, but you do have a new version of the TNGA-K platform that does have some extra rigidity and a whole bunch of other driving improvements we'll discuss in this video. But as far as the styling goes, you can see that is very different here. We have some new colors, but right up front there, you see you have some sharper headlamps there. They're all LED across the board for RAV4. Now this is an XSE that we have here, so this has a little bit of a more advanced headlight where you have the daytime running lights that are LED and the LED side marker lights. If you go for the lower RAV4, those won't be LED, but at least the regular main beam will still be LED, so you have great nighttime visibility for everyone. Otherwise, here for the XSE, you know, getting a little bit of a sportier look with those vertical LED lights you have and the sportier front bumper. Now there's also going to be a core look, which you get on the LE and the XLE Premium, as well as the Limited, where, you know, it's a little bit less sporty looking than this. They're all nice looking though, and you also even have the more aggressive Woodland and GR Sport styling if you want to go one step further in one direction or the other. But you know, this one especially here in this metallic white, this looks really great, especially with the contrast of the black fender arches you have. This one also does have 20-inch wheels. They also have coming down to the sides here some new side mirrors, and the whole shape is, you know, tweaked here, so you have some more ridges in the doors than before. And again, this extra black portion at the bottom is pretty cool, and the two-tone look on this one, by the way, also looks fantastic with the black roof. And then going out to the back there, you know, again, it gives you some taillights that are a stark change from the last generation. Nicely modernizes this vehicle. I really like the little vertical lights you have going across those taillights there in the back, and a little bit of a faux kind of garnish, the skid plate kind of thing for that rear bumper there. And again, the rear bumpers will also be unique depending on which trim you're going for as well. But a really nice look overall in my opinion, and you know, but it's nice that it has, you know, stuck to a size that is very popular. This is the best-selling vehicle in America, and for good reason. So the interior of the 2026 RAV4 is very impressive. Lots of great updates to technology, to storage, to functionality. They did a really good job here again. Even though we don't have more space on the inside really, we have some really nice other improvements here. So anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, the XSE here gets these seats that are a combo of the suede and the Softex leatherette kind of seats that Toyota does here. I love the blue stitching here, and they're also ventilated and heated seats here for the XSE and the Limited. I believe those are the only two trims that get the ventilation, and it's really nice to have that. They do work well. I tried them out here, and it gets some nice you know, breezes going through the seat here, and helps it to cool you down a little bit, and I really like that. Otherwise though, they're also memory seats. They also have all the usual power adjustments here, and they're pretty soft, comfortable seats too. They have some give to them, so they're not, you know, rock hard or anything. And just really great seats. Moving on to the steering wheel, that's all new here as well, and it's a really great wheel. A tiny bit of a thicker wheel, I think, in some places than the old RAV4 wheel, but a great wheel. Just has a few buttons here on it, nothing too overwhelming. You also do have a driver monitoring sensor here on these higher trims as well, but you can turn that off, so it won't nag you if you don't want it to, but it's certainly a nice thing to have. And it is also a heated steering wheel, of course, here in XSE. That's something that's on a lot of the trims, but obviously not standard though. And then moving on to the gauge cluster here, you get a 12.3-inch gauge cluster in all RAV4s, which is great, and it's nice and high resolution. And even though it doesn't have a hood over it, it has high enough contrast that even if the sun's hitting it, it doesn't glare so badly that I can't see it or anything. And also, if you go for a Limited, you'll get a head-up display as well, which is a nice touch. But anyway, as far as the customizations of this gauge cluster, it's a little less than the last generation actually, where you were able to customize both pods in that. In this, it's just that left side that you can scroll through the various info there that you're used to from other Toyotas from the past several years. Now there are different views as well. So you can have the double pods, you can have a single, or you can have, you know, a map view, which is a larger map view than before, and can actually pull in some of your map directions there in the gauge cluster itself on a map display, which is nice. And you know, just it's a pretty nice display. I do kind of miss, though, like you used to be able to customize the theme of them to have them more rugged looking or sporty. There isn't any of that anymore. I'm not sure why they removed some customization from these, but you know, still totally fine with the power meter and the speedometer there, and you know, all totally fine. Now moving over to the middle of the dashboard here, another big improvement is the infotainment software and system. So we get a 10.5-inch touchscreen as standard. That used to be the top screen in RAV4. That's now standard, and on a lot of these higher trims, you're going to get a 12.9-inch touchscreen. That's what we have here. We're looking at now, and it does have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, but it's running a brand new software for Toyota here. And so you see there's now a home screen. You didn't have the home screen before, so you have that. It has better voice recognition, so you can really do a lot more natural, you know, speech with it, and it'll understand you. You know, the maps has all been improved, and you still do have, thankfully, satellite radio, and even Spotify you can stream there. You also have, you know, all the other basic stuff, and you can, you know, select which widget you want there for the home screen. And you do have some of your climate controls in the screen. Now you still do have buttons that go up and down for temperature and a few other basics, and you know, like turning on your heated steering wheel, a cooled seat, that's all, you know, 1 or 2 taps. Very simple. Now if you want to go into the, you know, actual climate screen, you can, but even, you know, you have the air vent controls right there without going into a submenu. So to me, it's very much a non-issue, and especially with auto climate control, which is standard in these, you know, there's no need to have to be fiddling with that all the time. You mostly just set it and forget it. So I think it'll really be, you know, a very minimal amount of disruption if you are someone who, you know, wishes you had more physical knobs. I don't think you're going to really miss it too much here in this system, because it is just so well done. And I love having a nice volume knob right in the middle, easy access for both driver and passenger. And then moving down here, you have, again, these 2 little pods which change your drive modes, and then you also have this shelf, which is really nice. It does have a Qi wireless charging pad. I believe that's standard. If you go to a limited, you'll get double Qi wireless charging pads. My complaint, though, with this area is that it's smooth plastic and has a tiny little, you know, bracket here, but it's not going to be very good at holding your phone in place. And, you know, some of the best wireless charging pads out there are rubberized and have a raised portion in the middle to actually hold your phone on there a lot better. And even Toyota in the new Corolla Cross has an improved wireless charging pad. So it's a little bit unfortunate we don't have that here. You still do have, of course, USB-C jacks. Right beneath that, you have 2 45-watt USB-C jacks here in the higher trims. Lower trims will go to 15-watt USB-Cs, so a little bit slower charging, but still USB-C in general is just a really nice improvement. So great, you have the 45 watts here, though, and you also have another bin here that's really large. That's, again, all these bins are just so large with their volume. It's really impressive. Now that bin is a tiny bit rubberized here, but you know, all of these are a little rough too. All the plastics in here, this is a pre-production one, so that could improve eventually with the production ones, but you know, all the plastic is a little bit hard and a little cheap feeling in places. And that's something where some of the others, you know, have metal knobs and some higher quality kind of wrapped surfaces, things like that. And you don't have any of that here in these, unfortunately, even these higher trims. Now, otherwise, you do also have a new shift-by-wire shifter here as an option in the XSE and standard and limited. Otherwise, you'll have a regular shifter in all the others, which works fine. But, you know, this is a little bit less obtrusive here, having the little notch instead. And nice cup holders here, which also have a removable portion in the middle. So if you want to put something bigger in there that's not cups, you can do that. Another interesting thing here with this RAV4 interior is that you now have this bin that opens both on the left and the right, and it's a little bit hard. There's a little bit of padding to it, but it's not as plush as most of the others in this segment, which do a really good job of, you know, making your elbow points nice and soft. The cool thing is that you can pop this off completely and flip it around and have an extra storage space here if you want, and you know, just a fun little bit of versatility here. But anyway, when you open it up, you will see another USB-C jack. That's the one for data transfer if you want to do wired CarPlay. And then you also have another outlet in there and a good amount of space for sure. The only thing is, though, because this is removable, it's a little loose. And, you know, just again, some of this is maybe pre-production, so I'll have to wait till I get a, you know, production one later on here to see. But you know, that's the only thing I can say. You also have no padding down by your knees or anything, so that's all hard. So I really wish there was a little more attention to plushness, you know, in these, at least especially these higher ones. But anyway, you also have a pocket here in the door with a bottle holder, and also another pocket down by your, or up by your grab handle here, which is really large. Again, just so many great spaces to keep stuff here in this. And also in the door, you'll see the speakers for this JBL stereo. And the JBL here is something that you get on these higher trims. It's not on all of them. It's a 6-speaker stereo as standard. You get 9 here with the JBL system, and the big way to tell you have the JBL is having the A-pillar speakers. You don't get those on the lower system, and I'll have to spend more time with this to really figure out how it sounds, but the JBL systems are usually, you know, pretty decent. They're not as good as the Bose systems that some of the other competitors offer, in my opinion, but should still be a nice upgrade just having those extra speakers for sure. You also do have in the passenger side here another nice large shelf, and that has, you know, a nice dish to it, so you can really put a lot of stuff in there and have it stay in there really well. Also looking up, you'll see that you have a really nice large panoramic moonroof here in the XSE. That is something that, again, is only on some of these higher trims, but it's great to have. It really opens up nice and large, and you know, lets in a lot of natural light, and that's great because some other competitors like CRV still don't offer a panoramic roof like this does, so I'm really happy we have that. Now, moving on to the back seat here in the XSE. So you have, again, more of this two-tone thing going on there with these suede portions there in the middle. And when you look forward, you'll see that they have 2 USB-C jacks back there that are 15 watts, and also air vents, which is great. And I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have about 2 inches of legroom to spare. Again, the same really as the last generation. It's fine. It's probably not best in class, but certainly not worst either. And should be sufficient for most people, I think. Lots of headroom as well, especially if you don't get a moonroof. And some of the other trims, you have a ton of headroom in the back. But you know, even with the moonroof here, you still have a good amount of space there as well. And they also have pockets in those doors as well. Now, moving on to the cargo space here in RAV4. That's, again, going to be about the same as last generation. Don't expect any additional improvements as far as space goes there, but you will see a little bit of a pocket there on the right-hand side and a power outlet. And then beneath the floor there, you also will see a spare tire, which is great. I mean, it's a nice large spare. The spares are getting more and more rare in cars these days, especially hybrids. Not with Toyota. With Toyota, you can have the hybrid and a spare, and they've packaged it well so that you can do both. And that's great because it's really nice to have a spare for sure. And I know for a lot of people that's even a deal breaker, so I'm really happy we have that here. But let's start up and go for a drive. The RAV4 here has the usual Toyota key, which is you know, certainly a nice key, just a few buttons on it. And on the back it does say RAV4, which is a nice little, you know, bit of a customization to the key there, so I like that. But of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start in all of these. I believe the only difference is that LE, you don't have keyless access for the trunk on the base LE. Everything else, though, it's going to, again, have all, you know, push button start and all that. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button or the power button here in these now, and it turns right on. Because these are hybrids, oftentimes you'll just have you know, the chimes, and you know, everything will boot up, but the engine won't actually kick on. All right, so setting off here in the XSE version of the RAV4. So the first thing you notice about it, well, I think the first thing that I notice is the visibility, which is excellent, but you do feel like you're sitting up a little higher, at least I do, and the dashboard gets down nice and low, but I mean, this seat is in its lowest position, and it just, I feel like I'm, you know, really sitting up a little higher than I'm even used to in other RAV4s, honestly. But gives you a great view forward, great view out of the sides, view out of the back is very good. You do get a camera rearview mirror in limited. I don't believe it's available here in any of the other lower trims, though. Other things here that I'm noticing, you know, as we're coming to a red light here, brakes feel nice and natural and normal. And that's good because there's actually a new electronic brake booster here that they have. I believe it's the first application of this in any Toyota, but it's really super smooth, feels very normal for you know, a hybrid. And you know, again, just if you hop in this from driving a non-hybrid RAV4 for years, you're not going to feel any difference, is the bottom line, which is quite an accomplishment because there's some car companies that really struggle with that. So, you know, the fact that Toyota has done very well with that is notable in my opinion. Other things here, so throttle response is nice and natural here, and we will go and pass this truck here very casually, but getting up to some highway speeds here. it's pretty nice and quiet. And so we're going straight onto the highway, so we'll talk about that stuff here right off the bat. It's very impressive with the improvements they've made to this platform for the 6th generation of the RAV4. So we're still on, again, TNGA-K, but it's been revised and has some little subtle differences to this new generation version. And one of the bigger differences is that, like, they've done some reinforcements like the D-pillar area and made it extra rigid, and so that allows you to have a little bit of a smoother ride, because they're able to then soften up the suspension to accommodate that. But the thing that's really great is you also do have some extra seals that are a little quieter than before. They've also just added more sound deadening in general for these, and so all of that helps to just make this feel a little quieter. And so out at 65 miles per hour on the highway here, feels very smooth, very quiet. And also, for anyone that's curious about all the safety technology here in this, it's got everything as standard. We'll go ahead and turn it on here. You have adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist, lane trace assist, as Toyota calls it. All of that is standard. Blind spot monitoring is even standard. That's something that other competitors will still charge you extra and make you go up to higher trim to get blind spot monitoring. Not with Toyota. Even the base version of a RAV4 gets blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, of course automatic emergency braking. That's been standard for many years now. But all that stuff is standard. The only thing that is an extra cost thing is the 360 camera, which you do have here on the XSE. You'll get that unlimited, GR Sport, and I believe Woodland as well. But that's the only thing. So otherwise, you don't have to be having a headache trying to figure out at the dealer, do you have the stuff that you want or need as far as the assistance goes. And here in the XSE, you also get the automated park feature. That is something some of the others don't offer. I feel like that's also still very limited with the amount of use cases you can actually use the automated parking in, but it's a fun party trick, and for some people it may actually help you out every once in a while. But again, all the important stuff is standard, and I love that about these. It also debuts this new Toyota Safety Sense 4.0, which is a next generation version of all this sensing stuff that they have here, and so that gives you, for example, better pedestrian detection and detection of all the various things, and that's great. Another really cool thing is that you now have a drive recorder as standard, which is a dash cam. Now you can turn it off, so you don't have to have it on if you don't like it or whatever, but it allows you to have a built-in dash cam, which is a very good idea to have. And a lot of companies maybe offer like an add-on thing or something. I think Toyota has done that for a while as well, but to now have that as standard, and it's pretty cool where you can go through and you can select certain clips. You can have it set up to just record continuously, or you can go in and manually record something if you'd like. So they have all these cameras already anyway, and so why not offer that? And I love that Toyota is really one of the first to do that, and it just makes a bunch of sense, and it's very nice to have, and saves you a couple $100 from having to buy a dash cam. And the final safety thing to mention here about these vehicles is that although we don't have updated IIHS crash testing yet, what I do know is they said that they have now added the rear seatbelt pre-tensioners and load limiters. And so, with these new IIHS tests that really test the rear seat safety and occupants, especially children safety back there, having that addition to the back seatbelts will hopefully really help these to perform very well in those new crash tests. We'll have to wait and see, but they clearly have made an effort to improve that, and so that's great to see that they are focused on staying up to all the top safety standards. And the final thing I'll say on the highway here is that maintaining 65 miles per hour, this engine is also very well isolated here. I think a little bit more so than the last generation, where you really don't even hear it. It's really impressive how this feels like I'm driving an EV going down the road here in this, because I don't hear the engine. It's really quite impressive. And as far as this lane keep assist system, it works pretty well in my limited experience here so far. I'll have to do some more extended testing on my own windy highways in southwestern Pennsylvania when I get one of these eventually as a press vehicle, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that. But first impressions, it does a very good job. It's not ping pong, it's very assertive. It is still a hands-on system, of course, and it will be asking for a little bit of input from you every 10 seconds or so if you aren't giving that already. But it does have full speed adaptive cruise as standard. Traffic jam assist is also in these, but that does require a data connection, so that'll be a subscription kind of thing in order to have that traffic jam assist function actually work, which kind of just gives you some of that more advanced steering assist at speeds, I believe, under 25 miles per hour, but certainly a nice little thing to have. But yeah, really nice out on the highway. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it up into the sport mode, and let's do an acceleration here. and see how it does. And just rolling into it at 5 miles per hour. Here we go. All right, a little bit of a second where it was, kicking on all the electric assistance, and then it gets up and goes pretty nicely here. So we're running the 5th generation 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine here. And here in this application, it does 236 horsepower with all-wheel drive, 226 with front-wheel drive, which is available for the first time now. Now it's not on XSE, but you can get it on SE and on some of the lower trims as well. You'll be able to get front-wheel drive with a hybrid, which is great. That's the way you'll get the best fuel efficiency of 46 mpg, up to 46 in the city there on those. But it's a good amount of power here. Now there's no 0 to 60 time quoted, but should be nice and punchy. If you want to have even more power though, the XSE is one of the trims that's available with a plug-in hybrid. That does 324 horsepower and is properly sporty. And if you want to really get a sporty version of the RAV4 here, there's now the GR Sport version, which I've reviewed separately, and that's going to give you some handling improvements in addition to, again, that same powertrain you get in the plug-in hybrids. And those do about a 5.3 seconds 0 to 60, while also giving you about 50 miles of electric range, which is really impressive. Plug-in hybrid is awesome if you're able to go up to that and you're able to actually charge at home or at work every day, to maximize that, functionality of the battery. But, even if you're going for the regular hybrids here, really great. And I think you'll have no complaints with power. It's a nice little improvement over the last generation. It's about 11% more power to be exact. And now we got a couple of corners here, so we'll try out some handling here. Now, of course, we're just talking about a RAV4, so nothing crazy. But I mean, you do have an independent rear suspension, and again, some of those rigidity improvements do give us better handling. And they also said that the all-wheel drive system here, which is an all-wheel drive system, I'll get into that in a second, but it gives you a new posture control system, which helps minimize, your understeer a little bit, give you, better turn in, and, just, again, minimizes body roll and helps this to just be better as far as the handling goes. But that all-wheel drive system, again, is still an all-wheel drive system. We're familiar with that from the prior generation. Nothing different there. It's still doing about 89 pound-feet of torque from that rear motor, and that's going to, give you all-weather traction, and it's on demand, so when you need it, it's there. And the car is smart enough to always keep enough charge to keep that motor going. So if you're climbing a snowy mountain and you need that all-wheel drive system going full blast the whole time, it will prioritize juicing that rear motor and keeping that going. It has the capability to do that, endlessly pretty much. So that's going to be, totally fine, but it does give you less power to the rear than some of the others. For example, we have CR-V and Forester that do have real all-wheel drive systems with their hybrids, and that is going to be, again, giving you a 50-50 power split with those. You don't have that here with this. So, in really challenging circumstances, this is not going to be the best performer, in bad weather, but for the large majority of stuff people do, if you see a few inches of snow, mild stuff like that, dirt roads, all that, this can handle that no problem, because the reality is that you just need that rear traction to help get you going, and you're usually not going to be going super fast, so you don't need to have a ton of power to the rear there. It's just about keeping you moving and going, and this does that, so it should be very good, and it's very smart with the traction control system of limiting, even though the front motor is a lot more powerful and the front wheels will have more, oomph to them, it's going to limit that, so again, you don't have excessive wheel spin and all that. And there is also a snow mode, there's a trail mode, in addition to those other usual drive modes. So if you need, to have that better traction, it's going to do a very good job with all that. Also, other handling notes here, we just have 225 wide all-season tires, and we also do have about 3,800 pounds for the curb weight here in these. It's a few dozen more or less depending on the trims and all that, but it is going to be around that amount. And it feels nice and light, now, even in sport mode here, you have heavier steering, but we can go ahead and put it into the normal mode here and just, relax it a little bit. And steering gets nice and light, but I do like how the steering does have some feeling to it. It's not completely numb. And, there's some others where it is a little bit more numb feeling in some of the competitors. So I like that, you actually feel what the front wheels are doing a little bit. It's a little more communicative, and I like that. But it's not overboard with the weight or anything. It doesn't feel artificial. It just feels good. They did a really good job of just setting up the basics here in this car. Yeah, this engine still does have this great same characteristic with this ECVT, which isn't really a real transmission, but it basically just is very rev happy, and so it'll just rev right up and give you the power you need. But because you have more power than the last generation RAV4, you don't have to push it quite as hard. And I've noticed that it just does seem like, you know, the little bit of extra power does mean that you have less of that loud engine operation as often as you maybe did in the last generation. And so, you know, more of the time you're able to just kind of quietly coast around here with the engine either off or just doing very little work here. And so it just all combines to actually make it a more refined and relaxed experience because you have that extra power. And you know, but again, even whenever you are full bore in this thing, it still is really, again, nice and a little bit quieter, I think, than the last generation. And it's just, but it's just so responsive. You know, there's no waiting period, there's no waiting for shifts. It just goes straight to full power and gives you the acceleration you're looking for. As far as fuel economy goes for all of these, so these are rated for this XSE at 45 mpg in the city, 39 on the highway, and I believe 42 combined. Now, if you go for a lower trim with smaller wheels, you can go up to 46 in the city and up to 44 combined. And then, you know, again, there's just a variety of different MPGs depending on which trim you're talking about there. So I'll just put all those on the screen there. But overall, you know, I mean, huge amounts of fuel economy and better than a lot of the others. I know, you know, CRV Hybrid, the best that can muster is about 40 mpg. And we're talking about Forester Hybrid, that's like, I think, you know, in the mid 30s. So the fact that you get such good fuel efficiency, I mean, part of that is thanks to, again, that e-all-wheel drive system, which is the difference between this and, you know, the CRV and the Forester. But, you know, if you don't need to have that constant 50-50 split or whatever, like, which I think most people really don't, you know, this is going to just be so much more fuel efficient. And I also just have to applaud Toyota for making all of these hybrid as standard. It doesn't really sound like a massive thing, I guess, whenever you first, you know, think about it. But the more that you think about it, you realize, you know, with them selling almost 500,000 of these things every single year, and I think about 50% were hybrid already with the sales before, but to hybridize the other 50% immediately, I mean, that's a drastic reduction in emissions and shows, you know, a way to still give people choice, still have the gas, and, you know, people don't have to plug in if they don't want to plug in hybrid, you know, and you can still get massive reductions in emissions, just, you know, bumping all those previously non-hybrid RAV4s from their, you know, 20 to 30 odd mpg up to 45, 46 mpg. You know, that's a huge improvement, and that, you know, really takes a bite out of the amount of, you know, fuel that the country as a whole uses every year. And so I just love that they have the boldness to go all hybrid. They're the first to do it as far as all the vehicles in this segment. You know, others have hybrid versions, but, you know, this is the first to be all hybrid. And I really do love that they're continuing to, you know, have that commitment to better efficiency for everyone. Now, as far as pricing goes, unfortunately, we don't really have any exact pricing at the time of filming this here because these are going to be arriving in dealers in December. I'm filming this in October of 2025, so these hybrids will be arriving in December. The plug-in hybrids won't be arriving until the first quarter of 2026. I've heard, you know, either earlier 2026 or potentially even spring of 2026. So a little bit more of a wait for that. So we probably are not going to know the pricing for that even longer. But for these, they're just saying so far it's going to start in the low 30s. That's all we have. You know, so we'll have to wait and see. So I really can't compare this to the competition because pricing is everything when you're comparing. And if I don't have that, I can't really say, you know, how it stacks up. Obviously, in a vacuum, this is great. It has its pros and its cons, you know, and you can go watch my reviews of the other competitors if you want to hear my thoughts on all of those. But, you know, I think that at the end of the day, the RAV4, you know, again, has arguably, I think, you know, the best fuel efficiency, the best, you know, plug-in hybrid setup if you want that, has some of the best technology now, might not have the best space, but still very good amounts of space, fresh styling, you know, more refinement than ever. And, you know, I think that all these things are only going to help their position here as the best seller in this segment. I don't anticipate that changing. And as long as, again, pricing remains reasonable, which I have confidence it will, you know, I think that this is still going to just be, you know, the go-to choice for most people shopping for, you know, a vehicle in this segment. And maybe they'll even crack 500,000 sales here into next year once these have been out for an entire year of production. We'll have to see. But anyway, last little highway merge here. And and getting up some higher speeds here. You get a little bit of wind noise still. I still don't think this is the most quiet in this segment, but you know, still, again, some nice improvements. Great to see the progress for sure. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2026 Toyota RAV4. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and definitely be sure to check out my separate reviews on GR Sport if you'd like to see what that one's like, or the Woodland if you'd like to see that one as well. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.